Okay, so I am on tonight and live, and unfortunately, my children are still getting some music therapy lessons. You may hear music in the background, but hopefully it won't be an issue. I have the headphones on with its microphone, and hopefully you can hear me clearly, but we will find out here shortly. All right, let me try to get things set up here. So the purpose of these chats really is for you guys. I was asked several times if I could do some kind of live video and live chatting, and I haven't gotten around to doing anything, but I decided I would go ahead and give it a try, and hopefully now I have everything worked out, so that we don't have any issues with the audio besides, like I said, maybe some noise. But other than that, I hope it gets good. So there's a few possible things to talk about. One is I can tell you some about me if you're interested in knowing about me and my background, um, kind of how I got to be doing the things that I'm doing, or how I learned the knowledge that I know. Um, Another possible topic of conversation is we did have someone post in the group their child testing here, actually, and since you posted it in the group, I don't mind going over that and kind of discussing how you go about reading a report from the school. So I can do that. So there are several possible topics. And I'm going to give a few minutes here because I'm on a little early and wait and see who might be joining us. Our cat just had three cute little kittens like 24 hours ago. So all the cats are going crazy in the house. So if you see me kind of looking off randomly, it's probably because the cats are going nuts. So I will get started until somebody kind of interrupts me with an idea of something else we can talk about. I did want to finish going over Ashley's information that she posted to the group of her child testing. And so I was just looking over some of the information and responding back. You want to make sure that you thoroughly read over the report. One of the issues that Ashley had mentioned is not being able to get her child any testing, and she was discussing about how you have grades that her daughter had B's in reading, English, and math, but had A's in spelling and social studies, and that the state testing showed that she was average for math, except for math computation, which is below average. Also with the Fontes and Canal, which is a reading standard, the reading standard was the fluency was fine and the reading standard was fine, but there was limited comprehension of the material being read. All of these things kind of point to issues with, I was going to say, I don't know if people can hear me. I do believe so. Let me check. It's not, and it's me not understanding how these headphones work. So, in any case, the let's see. So in this letter from the teacher, it says that her child is observant, but she tends to be distracted by anything that's going on in the room. When you see something like that, that's potentially ADHD and or sensory issues that are interfering. Sometimes anxiety, again, anxiety can be caused by sensory issues. Um, let's see. So then it also says that she sent her work in on time, that she's organized and helpful. Those are usually executive functioning skills. So she's saying that her executive functioning skills tend to be on track. But then she turns around, the teacher says, I often have to remind her to focus on her work and herself. Well, again, that's kind of indicative of having impaired executive functioning, or it could be something like, if not the executive functioning, again, sensory issues, that basically the general chatter and sound and movement that goes on in a classroom is so much that it distracts the child and distracts their ability to pay attention. Let's see. So she has a mothering tendency, which is common in girls. Um, let's see. So based upon the screening and scores, let's see. She was in Tier 2 response to intervention for math, which that means that she is getting some aids and services for math, but is not doing well enough to be in a general class without additional help. And don't let your child ever get stuck in the RTI process. If that happens, please make sure that you say or do something, because schools are not allowed to hold you up in the RTI process. There is guidance out there that states that, the OSEP has come forward with guidance saying that schools are not allowed to hold up testing while they run a child through the RTI process. So, and I have that guidance and I've posted it many times in the group. So if anybody is needing information, please let me know and I will post it again. And I will continue to kind of post that information each and every time it comes up. Let's see. Apparently Ashley is on, so I was asking her to join me because I'm going over the information. So we talked about the teacher's letter, and the teacher's letter is from last year, and then also testing the mathematics from last year was done too, and in that you can see the worksheet that she posted talking about how her math scores were below average for math computation. So potentially that's a specific learning disability in math. I also known as dyscalculia. Then I have a blog post that I've written discussing dyscalculia. Also, one of the things that I noticed that I thought was really interesting is in the child's first grade year, you can see the score that the child received on the math test. So for fall, it was 7, and then winter, 24, spring, it was 30. And then the next year, start of second grade, it was down to 15, then 31 and 35. So it lets me know when you have a drop from 30 to 15, kind of in the end of the first grade year into the start of the second grade year, there was a problem there, and it was a large regression. So this is something that needs to be addressed and potentially brought up as something for extended school years. Because having some kind of large regression recruitment is something that needs to be addressed. Then a statement from the teacher for the last year also was submitted, and in that the teacher talked about her daughter having problems with attention and focus. And again, that is often an executive function deficit. Again, the hallmark of ADHD is executive functioning, but That's one thing is you do have this issue with executive functioning, and it talks about rushing through work. Again, that's typical of executive functioning. Needs to ask questions. Very common, interestingly enough, about children with ADHD. Hi, Ashley. I've been talking about the things that you left in the group concerning your child. So if you don't mind, I'll just continue with that. And then if somebody wants to discuss some other topics, they can let me know. But I was kind of discussing when parents send me the information, what am I doing? What am I looking for? How am I reading and interpreting this information? And so in the note from the teacher, we were talking about weaknesses, um, and she talks about having to rush through work, needs to ask questions. And what I was saying was, for children with ADHD, it is so fascinating that they have an impaired audio working memory. And if you think about it for a moment, it makes complete sense. Because when somebody is having a difficult time paying attention, right, when you're talking at them, you just sound kind of like the old cartoonist Snoopy, just wah, 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 wah. People can't really understand you. And so these children aren't really, they're trying to listen, but they have a very difficult time listening, and they have a difficult time taking in that audio information and then holding it so that they can keep it in their short-term working memory and use and manipulate that information. Now at home, you see this because you go and you tell your child, hey, I would like for you to come inside. I want you to go and wash your hands. I want you to go take a shower and change your clothes, and then come back and we're going to sit down and eat dinner. You'll find your child doesn't do all of those things. They'll either do the first part or typically the last part. The last part seems to be what they remember the best. Okay. So they said, yes, it's a little bit fuzzy. So is this any better? I'm doing my best here with the sound, and it's just because we've got my children doing their music therapy sessions still. Um, but they should be done in just a little bit. Anyway, so with, like I said, just you'll see this struggling of being able to follow multi-step directions. And that's one of the ways in which, you're having this issue with potentially executive functioning, working memory, just attentional problems, just in general. Let's see. So it says struggles with third grade math concepts, which by the way, third grade, one of those pivotal years, right? We have a pivotal year, kindergarten. It's when the child actually starts school and when you start, kind of noticing maybe social deficits compared to other children. You have your third grade as a pivotal year. It's very important because in third grade is sort of where the teacher has been doing all the work. The teacher has been the one to make sure the child gets everything, they stay organized. Basically, a lot of those executive functioning skills that I was talking about in order to get work done. And what happens is in third grade, that now shifts to the child. And they find they have with this impaired executive functioning, they can't keep up and they can't keep organized and they can't keep doing all the work that they need to be doing. And they start running into problems. So let's see. But anyways, here it talks about struggling with third grade math concepts, and then, but she does well in progress monitoring. Part of the reason I think that is because in the progress monitoring, everybody has to be quiet. There's very few things that are distracting her at that time, and I think that's where you see the discrepancy between the progress monitoring and then what's going on in the classroom. So the other part that was interesting is the struggles with basic computation, so basic math computation. Can do it, it takes a long time, it can have a lot of errors. Again, that can be attentional, and often that's a working memory problem. Possibly processing speed, but usually working memory. Because your working memory is where you hold information for a short term so that mentally you can manipulate it. And if you are having an impaired short-term memory, you're not having that ability to mentally manipulate the information before you need to use it. It's really tough for children to keep up. Again, um, y'all are free to suggest other things, other topics for me to discuss. If no one came forward and pointed to anything in particular, so I was going over the information that Ashley had left in the group. Let's see, the start of this post, I think it's up at the top today, and you can see it says Ashley and Jason Light, and she talks about her daughter and the issues that she's struggling with. And then you can kind of scroll through there and you'll find that she's put in quite a few pieces of information that she's received from the school concerning her daughter and her quality of work. So I am at, let's see, I believe it is this year's information, and it's testing. So it's neuropsychological testing or psychoeducational testing, right? We're looking at the psychoeducational domains, things like working memory, the processing speed, reasoning, so like fluid reasoning, and then verbal comprehension. And so we're going to start here and looking at her test scores, and her test scores show that she has, well, first off, just so you know, they have an error in the report. So in the report, it has the scale, and then it lists the subtests. So those aren't actually scales as much as subtests. And then in the score column, it says IQ. That is not IQ. What that is the standard score. And the standard score here, it shows that she has a 75 for verbal comprehension. It means the fifth percentile. So the fifth percentile is considered low average, and maybe even into the impaired range. I know this may amaze you people, but like I don't have this stuff memorized off the top of my head, right? But if you need this kind of information, again, let me know. Much of it I have posted in the group, and so if you're needing help in locating it, I can definitely help you find it. So let's see. So a 75 in standard score is a fifth percentile, it's a scale score of 5, and then that's a negative 1.67 standard deviation below grade level. So about a grade and a half, a little over a grade and a half. And it actually puts her into the borderline range. So that's significantly impaired. And with verbal comprehension that impaired, I would say, I do find that interesting. And then kind of like mentally I'm going, well, aphasia. Because if you ever have me do your private reports, I promise you what's going to happen is I'll have these pages printed off. I will have scribbled notes all over it, and I'm going to fax and send it back to you. And then we'll have a call, and we'll discuss everything that I've written on there. But there may be things you're like, what the heck does she mean? Well, this is it. It's, a lot of times I'm reading these, and I don't know anything about these children, right? I'm making educated guesses based on the information that's presented to me, and kind of like my overall accumulated knowledge along with the knowledge I sort of picked out from reading medical journal articles and etc. And so the first thought, like I said, is some kind of either like aphasia or some kind of some kind of verbal learning disability, to have verbal comprehension, which is, really truly kind of being able to understand speech that's being spoken to her. Like it's something that she struggles with. And then in the breakdown of the scores here, it talks about similarities, which measures abstract and concrete ability to, reason things out. That her score was a 2, which is extremely low. That's down into, I believe, the impaired range. Profound, the less than 25 percentile. So that means that she's having this difficulty of understanding what it is that's going on. When somebody would I guess kind of trying to understand the true meaning of the word, right? It's like she can speak the word, but she doesn't always get what the true meaning of the word is, sort of those more subtle verbal nuances. Um, so perceptual reasoning, often it's called fluid reasoning. Her fluid reasoning is also relatively low. Again, it's a standard score of 84. So I always double check these things on my own list. I don't ever check what the psychologist wrote. Um, I find they're wrong more often than not. So let's see. So a standard score of 84, it's in the 14th percentile, and that's low average, and it hits right at about one minus one standard deviation, or basically one full grade level below where she should be. Um, Fluid reasoning is relatively interesting in the fact it's your ability to kind of take these, general information that you've learned, and then you're presented with this novel problem that you have no idea what this problem is, but you're pulling on all the knowledge that you have, and then you kind of think about that knowledge in a new way and be able to solve this new problem that you have in front of you. And that's what fluid reasoning is. And so it's difficult for her to grasp the new concepts. I would understand why if she was having problems with math word problems, why it would be especially difficult for her with math word problems. Working memory, she's, let's see, standard score of 102, so she's in the 55th percentile. Processing speed, 128, which is 97th percentile. So her processing speed is amazing. And then her general full scale IQ is 85, with a percentile score of 16, hitting her um, kind of on that lower end of average. Average is 80 to 100, no, 120, 110. Hold on. So at 80 in a standard score, no, we are at low average. So we're at 80, we're at low average into like right at the borderline low average range. So that's interesting because with her IQ being so low, I'm wondering why the school, and they may have, and maybe mom just didn't post it, but did the school do any kind of test for adaptive skills? It's important to look at because potentially, and I don't know actually if they mentioned this, but she may have mild intellectual delay. Um, and I know that may sound, like what? It's really not as big of a deal as you think, but it is something to be noted because it can cause her to struggle academically kind of across all subject areas. And that is a bit of what you're seeing. Um, let me see. Does anybody else have anything else they want me to talk about? Because I can also do this in the group if anyone is interested. But nobody had brought up any topics. For what kind of skills for the school to look at? So what do you mean as far as the school? So the school has looked at quite a few skills. And I didn't go through everything yet. Because again, I'm seeing where they did the WISC. I also think it's unusual. They did the WISC 4. The WISC 4 is not the newest version of the test. Actually, the WISC 5 is. So I'm not sure why they used 4. Let's see. And that you did mention that she has attention issues and now she's medicating. With medication, her attention index score is a lot higher. That makes sense. However, though, if the attention problem was brought on because of ADHD, ADHD is neurodevelopmental delay. And in neurodevelopmental delays, and people I think sometimes think like I'm coming back. And that's because I don't really know a whole lot of information about their child. So what they little they do tell me, I can kind of like extrapolate and then go, oh, well, they may have issues in these areas. And they're like, oh, yeah, they do have problems in these areas. That's only because, in very broad terms, right? Not everyone, not all the time. in a very broad term, you have, somebody with ADHD, and there's kind of a set of things you should look for if they have issues with ADHD. And that's just because, again, it's a neurodevelopmental delay. The kids, more or less, right? Not everyone, 100% of the time, but more or less will say, have like these common problems. And so you will have attention, you will have problems with executive functioning, you have problems with sustained attention. You have problems with, like I said, the audio short-term working memory. They can't remember short-term directions in verbal information. They're more usually pictorial. They need pictures and visual reminders. Um, you usually have children who have ADHD. They tend to have dysgraphia because their mind is just so racy with ideas. It's hard for them to organize everything, to get it onto paper. And then often they'll have dysgraphia in the form of written expression, like the literal handwriting is difficult because they have poor fine motor control. And it's something that they struggle with, and often they'll have issues with visual spatial dysgraphia, that, or visual motor. And so it's literally taking the tip of your pencil, and repeatedly putting it back into the same position. They have a very difficult time with that because they're not very aware of where their body is in space. And often these children with ADHD suffer from issues that concern like proprioceptive input, again, not understanding where your body is in space. They'll have issues normally with dyscalculia, in particular word problem solving. It's a big struggle, along with math computation and math operations. Math operations is really kind of their inability to catch these changes in signs when they're doing worksheets. So often one of the accommodations you'll use is to highlight all the different changes in sign in a worksheet to make sure the child is helping them to pay attention. And they'll have problems, like I said, with the math computation, just simple addition, subtraction, multiplication, and then struggles with division. And again, this is dyscalculia. So there's sort of this whole host of things. Just because your child has ADHD or impaired executive functioning, all of these things become as key and potential problems that any given child may have. So that's kind of how I do a lot of what I do. I just have read enough now that I've sort of gathered all this information, and I tend to know all this information just through reading all the journal articles that I have. And I often share my Dropbox of information. I have a ton of information in my Dropbox account. So if you're ever interested in looking at any of the research that I have, I'm happy to share my Dropbox account, as long as Dropbox doesn't slap me for having too many people access my information. We're all good. So, actually, I didn't ever hear back from you as to what kind of skills school looks at. So I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. Karen asked, what what are you allowed to ask for as far as the IEP goes, and what kind of things are you not allowed to ask for? Well, that's a great question. It all depends on your child. The most important thing, by far, is safe, right? Free, appropriate public education. It is such an important concept that case law has dictated that your child could be inappropriately categorized for special education. So say they're supposed to be under specific learning disability, but they have more of a speech language impairment, or vice versa. Or, you have a child with autism, but they're, instead of that being their primary, they have speech language impairment. It doesn't really matter. What matters is safe, right? What is the school doing to make sure that your child has free, appropriate public education? Now keep in mind, right, free means no cost to you. Appropriate It's up for debate, right? We just had the injury case from the Supreme Court, and the injury case said, because what has been kind of the rule up until the injury case was recently been ruled on this past year, or has it been a year ago? For a little bit. But basically, what it said was, as long as the school is offering de minimis, the minimum, then the school had met their obligations there. And so it was really great because with the injury case, they made it very clear, no, that is not acceptable because it's not acceptable for children in general education. Why is it therefore acceptable for children in special education? And they made it very clear that you're not allowed to just, scoot by on the bare minimum, that your child should be making more progress than the bare minimum. And that's what I like to see when I see data that's given to me. And that's one of the reasons, too, you can ask for extended school year and why I've been bringing it up constantly, because your child's lack of progress during the academic year could constitute them, needing the extended school year, and it's important to get. Now, to go back to parents' question, right? What are you allowed to ask for? You're allowed to ask for anything that your child needs to help them succeed in school. This is why I love it when I can hear parents say, hey, my kid wants to come and they want to do stuff and they want to speak at their IEP meeting. I think that's a great thing. And I really encourage you to do so. I do think the IEP team listens a lot more when that happens because they're now able to hear directly, right, from your child. What the child thinks they need to succeed in order to do well in school. That's really kind of the very definition of faith, right? So I think it's important to bring your child to advocate for themselves. Not only to teach them the self-advocacy skill, which is so important, and they'll have to do probably for the majority of their life, right? But also it gives the IEP team a chance to hear what's going on. So I encourage you to bring your child to an IEP meeting to let them be able to speak for themselves if they can, or to write a note. You could even videotape and bring your iPad with video or whatever and go, here, I'd like to show this presentation that my child decided and wanted me to put together for them. Whatever, to allow them to have a voice in their own meeting. I think that's a wonderful idea if you can do that. So yeah, you're allowed to ask for anything. Just will it be granted? Well, you have to keep in mind, is it something that's needed for your child to have a free, appropriate public education? Does it make sense for the least restrictive environment in which they're in at that moment? I don't know, but there's a lot of possibilities of things that you can ask for and a lot of things that I've heard people have been able to get for their child. So it really is hard to say. Does anyone else have any questions? Because I am here for you guys to answer anything that you may want to know. Let's see. Any questions? So I'm going to continue working on Ashley's information that she left. And part of it is that I leave this information in the group, not just for Ashley, but for everyone to be able to read so that you can get an understanding kind of what I'm reading and what I'm looking at when I do sit and read these documents. Now, just to let you know, I kind of use my background. I am the mom of surviving quadruplets. I do have two older children who are 26 and 24. And then I have my surviving quadruplets who are 11. And with the birth of my surviving quadruplets, that and kind of all their medical problems and all their issues and then the issues at school, I just spent a lot of free time trying to figure out like what happened and what went wrong and did I do something wrong and just looking, trying to find answers. And I think so many of us do that, or we try to do that. And it was sort of later at one point I realized, you know what, I've learned a lot of information that people find valuable, that people want to know, that are struggling to learn. And here I am, and I can share it. And I just started the Facebook group as a platform in order to share all the information that I know, not just the educational aspect, which you can get in a lot of different groups. There's a lot of different advocacy groups out there. But I think, different from everybody else's group. I focus on, you know, peer-reviewed journal articles, both medical, psychological. I try to look at things from a medical point of view and not strictly just from an educational point of view. Though, I look at the medical information as backing up the educational aspect and sort of fully encompassing and sort of drawing this bigger picture so that we can clearly see or better see what it is the child is needing in the educational environment. Um, so that's kind of how I look at things and how I do advocacy. I know that we have my daughter's over here. Get along, Missy. And then we have our cat over here too. So anyway, so I try to, like I said, look at things from this kind of whole picture effect. And again, like I said, I know that's a bit different than other groups you may have been in. Um, so I don't know if we're going to cover anything else. If you even have any questions or ideas, even for future topics to cover, because I would like to try to do this at least twice a month on Wednesdays potentially, or maybe some other day. When we voted in the group, Wednesday at this time was really popular. So I thought I would start here and then we'll adjust things as needed. But I wanted to, try to have these sessions at least twice a month, maybe once a week. It just depends on interest and sort of, what kind of feedback I'm getting. Because I think this could be really beneficial and it's definitely a quick way to share information. And I am more than happy to do that. As I said, I probably spend 2 or 3 hours a night kind of researching. I do that every night, even now. I still am always trying to learn something new because honestly, there is something pretty much new to learn. I love working in this group and I love trying to help you guys across all 50 states. It's a challenge because it's complex to cover all the law and know all the ins and outs of all 50 states in the United States. It's a lot of work. Um, but I try to do my best to keep up with everything and to be able to give you whatever the newest and latest information is in your state that you need to help you with the school district. So I don't know if anybody has anything else, but if not, then we may call it quits for tonight because I do have a client that I'm going to help. And I do also want to talk to the admins, and we'll see what we can do about maybe offering our services a little more consistently to people in the group. I mean, of course, you are always free to be in the group and to ask questions, and I will do my darndest to get to your question as fast as I can. I usually pretty good about being responsive to the group, I think. And most of the time, I think I have stuff answered within 12 hours or less. But I was going to talk to the admin to see what we can do with offering more formal advocacy services and what else we might be able to do for the group. So, all right. Well, thank you all for joining me this evening. And if no one else has any other questions, oh, no. There are some questions. They just weren't moving down. All right. So based off the test scores, where do you think my daughter falls for health? I mentioned that actually in the post, Ashley, and for that I had talked about that I think that she may have ADHD. It looks like that she has dysgraphia, that she has dyscalculia. Those are definitely areas in which she's struggling. Potentially she could have vision problems sometimes. dyslexia is misconstrued for a vision problem. You can have fluency insufficiency. And what's weird is it is hard to find. It is a standard vision test will not show these kinds of vision problems. So even, just because like, hey, my child has 20/20, that doesn't mean anything. It really doesn't. Your child could still be having vision issues that's interfering with your ability to read. So the best way is to go see a functional or developmental ophthalmologist and have them do testing and either that or somebody who specializes in vision therapy. So often they are a developmental or functional ophthalmologist, and they will be able to do the right kinds of functional vision exams to help determine if there is some kind of vision problem that's holding her back. And like I said, Ashley, I think you will find it incredibly helpful if you read through my series of blog posts. Those blog posts, I am so grateful that you guys find them helpful. I spend a lot of time doing most of those blog posts. They take me anywhere from 24 hours to write, depending on how much information I'm kind of lifting from other sources, to it can take me up to 2 weeks to write one of these posts if I'm putting in a whole lot of peer-reviewed research. And the research, just so you guys know too, I usually link it, because I embed links to all the information that I've researched to write the post. And sometimes the medical journal article information you cannot access, but I tend to be able to access. I mean, like I'm normally pulling the whole article where you may only, and I only be able to link for you the abstract. So if you're ever interested in the full article in any of my posts that I have written, you just contact me because more likely than not, I do have the full article in my Dropbox account. Another question from Karen that said, I'm not sure where to go from this point on the IEP because the last IEP meeting, the principal wanted to argue with me, so the meeting didn't go over well. So Karen, for that, what I would do specifically is I would make that agenda. You need an agenda because the agenda will help keep your stuff, right? Your topics, your information on track. And then you can use the prior written notice tracker that I have in the group. And I know some people are really confused by that. So the reason I call it the prior written notice tracker is because these are the things you want on your prior written notice when the meeting is done. I just call it a tracker because it's everything that you're requesting, right? So like to Karen, all of these different things where, she was wanting to ask things that the principal kept arguing with her over. So what? Let the principal argue, right? So it's great that you're arguing with me. Now tell me specifically, what is the reason that you're denying what I'm requesting that you're going to write on the prior written notice? I want to know because I want to write it down right now. I'm going to write it on my prior written notice tracker. And that's the purpose, right? The purpose is to get them to say out loud what it is that they're trying to use as an excuse to deny you, whatever it is that they're denying you. So you want to write that information down because from there you may take that information and potentially pursue a due process case or you may pursue a state complaint and you want it all written down right there so that you can reference it and then, and kind of get all your little ducks together showing why your child needed these things and why you were asking for them and then show them how they were all denied. So Ashley said, they denied an IEP and I had to beg for a 504 and I kept saying she's fine and then the average grade and grades were fine. Okay, so the 504 guidance that I left you that says, I believe it's like educator and parents, or maybe it's parents to educators guide to the 504 and it's written by the Office of Civil Rights. You can't get a more authoritative guide, that's not legal advice beyond this guide. It's the best thing. And the 504 guidance there is stellar, and they make it very clear, and I think it's page 24, because I reference this so often. Grades do not matter. They do not matter. So Don't let that put you off. And along with the definition of faith, and again, I included this in the group, but the definition of faith, the very definition says, it also covers children who is a child with a disability who is passing from grade to grade. So you don't need to have bad grades in order to qualify for faith under IDEA. It's just not a thing. They like to tell parents that it's a thing, but it's not. So don't let them deter you and argue back with those comments. Um, and then, like I said, the 504 guy, you just highlight that and you tell them, look, here on page so and so it says, and it's very clear. And if, we aren't, if you're not going to give me a 504, then I'm going to be filing complaints as soon as you send me the private notice explaining why you're not providing my child with a 504. It's going to be that simple. And then I'm going to take this and I'm immediately going to go over to the Office of Civil Rights and I'm going to file my complaint. I think they'll change those things pretty quickly once you tell them that. So Karen said, also no one wants to talk to me about my child, just complain. Yes, that does happen a lot. So the teachers get so focused on, right, like here are these problems from this child that they don't look at the behavior and go, hey, we're seeing behavior. What about this behavior? Like, what is it saying to us? Like, what can we do to help address these problems well enough so that my child isn't being behavioral? And they don't look at it that way. They just look at it, it's a bad child. How dare you parent? You didn't raise them right. You should have worked harder. You disciplined them more. Oh, heck, I can't even remember all the things that people have told me. I had all kinds of stuff people told me, and especially the three of them. They just thought my kid's wild. And okay, so they kind of are, but they all, like, two of them have ADHD. All three of them have autism. What do you expect out of me? One me, three of them, and they sort of run things. But, yeah, I guess what you really want to do is try to work on changing their mindset and saying, you know what, and especially when you have meetings, okay? I would like to talk about what are my child's strengths. I would like to talk about, what are the great things that my child has accomplished. And I want to start off the meeting discussing these things. And then try to help them see, like, hey, my child may be behavioral, my child may have these problems, but you know what? There's a lot of positives going on here too. And we need to know these and acknowledge that and then, kind of fuel that, right? We want to take what the strengths are and try to make it even better so that in the end, it helps compensate for these things that are sort of weaknesses. And I think that's sort of the mindset that needs to take place and what needs to change, and it hasn't been able to change yet. So I would try that, and I would make the agenda, like I said, Karen, and then you can have on your agenda, where you speak, and then you just bullet point out, here are my child's strengths. Here's what I see as a strength. Here's what I see as the things that are going well. Here's what my child sees as the things that they're doing well and what their strengths are. So now let's talk about what we're here to discuss, which is some of the areas of relative weakness. And then kind of take the meeting from there. So Erica says, my son currently shares 1 hour of time there with a classmate. So I guess they're getting a para that they share with another classmate. But they work terribly together. So we're trying out 30 minutes of each getting one-on-one, and it's been great. So his IEP is for individual and group. Nice. So what the school is doing, Erica, is they're trying to cover themselves. Is what they're doing. Because they're saying if something happens and we need to kind of group them back together again, staffing issues, whatever, right, we're covered. And potentially that's fine. But they also need to work on, and something that you could potentially add into the IEP, is to work on social skills for your child in order to try to help him work out with whatever it is that, they work so terribly together about. You don't state whether it's behavioral or, it's a social problem or what, but that could potentially be something that you could work out. use that in a little more too. Am I being loud enough now? Hopefully I'm being loud enough to everybody. Let's see. And then it says, so Erica was talking about he really needs a one-on-one para for at least an hour each day. But she says she can't because the district is trying to force larger groups to save money. Okay, so just so you know, saving money is never, ever, ever, ever an acceptable reason for the school district to get to you. Never, ever. I mean, it may be a real reason the school is having a problem because many schools have their funding cut, and it is a big problem. And then also they have requirements for paraprofessionals, but then they don't want to pay them anything. I mean, they usually pay the minimum wage. So it can be really hard to find qualified people to work and do these things. But again, what you have to look at is, and kind of what you have to argue with the school, is you have to tell them, my child needs this for state. My child needs this one-on-one in the educational environment, and then explain why, give them your reasoning, and then tell them. All right, so you want to refuse, we've written the agenda and I've written it down and I've given you my reasons for why my child needs it in the educational environment. I have my prior written notice tracker, and now I'm going to write on my prior written notice tracker whether my request is approved or denied. And if it's denied, then I want you to tell me why it is that you're denying my request. And I'm going to write it down. And then I want you to send me the prior written notice after the meeting stating what you just said right here. Which, by the way, does come to the point, if you can, always record your IEP meetings. Now, in some states, it's not possible, like Florida, for instance. They actually have a Supreme Court ruling. In Florida, they are not permitted to record IEP meetings unless the parent can prove that they have some kind of disability that requires them to record the meeting. So Florida is an unusual case. That is not the case in most states, and I think it's terribly extreme. But it is what's going on in Florida, and you should be aware of that if you live there. For most states, you just need to give the school district notice, and when you tell them that you're going to record, expect them to bring your recorder too, and they may even bring their lawyer. And if so, that's not necessarily a bad thing because the lawyer can help explain the law. Because sometimes the problem is the school staff doesn't know the law. Or they think they know the law, but they really don't know the law as well as they thought. And the school district lawyer can sometimes straighten them out. So let's see. Yeah, so as far as that tough spot, though, about the one-on-one and for the entire hour and et cetera, literally, you just are going to have to be a little tough with them, essentially. So Karen did ask, are you allowed to record the meeting? Absolutely, you are allowed potentially to record the meeting. It depends on your state. And unfortunately, my very best resource, very best one, was one where it had all the state recording laws, and I don't think I ever downloaded that stupid thing. And you know what? They have changed their website, and so now it's not available anymore. So I'm trying to find some other resources that help explain each state's law, because you do need to be careful. You need to know whether you're in a one-party or two-party consent state. It's very important to know, because if you are in a one-party consent state, like I am here in Arizona, I don't need to tell anybody. I know that it's being recorded. And as long as I know it's being recorded and I am participating in the conversation, it's perfectly legal. Yay! And that saved me a couple of times because I will record and I don't notify anybody else when I'm recording. And the intent isn't to use that recording anywhere. But it has come up where I have needed to use the recording, and so I was very thankful that I had it. So I kind of practice CYA, right? Cover your, and so it's important to make sure that you're covered as best as you can. So recording the meeting is completely possible. Just make sure you're not violating state laws. Notify the school that you're planning to record the meeting. Please give them at least 3 days notice. In California, people have given this sort of a 24-hour notice, and the school district's been completely fine. So it is possible to give shorter notice, but most schools appreciate a 3-day notice to make sure that they have the equipment that they need so they can record the meeting too. And that way, really what it is just to help protect them so they have their own version so that their lawyer, if need be, can listen to it at some point later. Let's see. So I think I'm getting down and I'm catching up to where comments are. So this is good. Um, so Ashley is saying thank you so much. You're very welcome because this is the whole purpose, right, of why I have the group and what I'm trying to do, which is just, I don't know, right? Save you people some grief and some of the pain that I went through trying to figure out what the heck everything meant. So I'm glad you guys have been able to find stuff beneficial. So, Ashley's wanting to follow up with me about her daughter's testing, and potentially, actually, I can do that. Do be aware, though. I have started my nonprofit, which is Arizona Exceptional Students Association, AESA, and that's kind of taking up some of my time right now. And I do have some clients that I'm currently working with. As a matter of fact, when I got a call here when I'm done. And so it depends if I've got time. But if I've got time, I can definitely do it. Or if you've got a little time that you can wait on me so I can get around to it, then I can do it too. Let's see. So Karen, you're very welcome. If you have any more questions, definitely please let me know. I'm more than happy to answer them. Hi, Julie. How are you doing? Um, I do it every time I use my phone. Okay, well, that's good because, like I said, depending on how many people are joining us, and then the questions and feedback and etc., will determine. Basically, I don't want to waste my time. Is what it's coming down to, right? Like I dedicate a whole lot of my time to the IEP group, and trust me, I don't mind, right? Because it's the form of the group. This is what I do, and I enjoy doing it. But I've got kind of a lot of balls in the air at the moment. I got a lot of things going on, and I want to make sure that I do take care of the group as best I can. So I don't want to waste my time. And if my time is more productively spent just moderating the board and answering questions versus trying to do these live chats, then that's what I'll do. But if the live chat proves to be more productive because I can help more people and I can give information quicker, then absolutely, I don't mind doing these, up to like twice in a week, all month long. So it just depends on, your guys' interactiveness and feedback and the information that I get, because there is so much about special education to discuss, from like the series of posts I did on special education jargon, the information that sort of, like I was telling earlier, talking about the whole neurodevelopmental aspect, and then how a lot of these neurodevelopmental disabilities have impacts to education, and it's well documented in medical literature, but you have to have access to these peer-reviewed medical journal articles, and a lot of people don't. And I happen to be blessed to have kind of two databases I can access to gather up these peer-reviewed journal articles for free, which is what I do. And I download them into my Dropbox, and that's the information that I'm sharing with the group when I share with you my personal research out of my Dropbox account. So that's another aspect that we could discuss. We can discuss, again, kind of the ins and outs of an IEP meeting, the things that you need to know, the things that you need to do, how you want to be prepared, organization of IEP information and documents. Goodness knows, there was kind of a flurry of that information, and it can be overwhelming. As I said, I've had stats. I know Jackie, one of the other admins in the group, she mentioned bags she had of medical and educational paperwork for her child. Well, when you have a child who is medically complex, like her children are, like my son Joseph is, the amount is kind of paperwork and data that they generate. It's overwhelming. And you can even see over here, kind of in the corner, my husband moved his bookshelf over here 2 days ago. 2 days ago. And yet, look, I'm already using it to stack paperwork. Why? I have all this stuff that I need to go through, but I don't want to go through it right now. So it's just sitting here, and it'll probably continue to accumulate until I'm sort of forced to deal with it because my cats are knocking it over. So, there is a lot of different aspects that we can cover. Um, Someone was asking a question, but their question got cut off. So I'm going to give them a minute here and see if they can type in their question. And somebody said it's hard to run a group. I can relate. Well, I was going to say, actually, this group is very easy to run, and I credit all of that to the people who were here. So I do want to say thank you very much. I have seen some of the other boards where they have advocates, and provide special education advocacy, and those boards are chaos. I don't know how anybody gets anything done, and the poor parents who come in and they're lost and they're searching for information, that they get into these groups and they're told all this information and they get conflicting information. It's the last thing that you need as a parent, right? You're already overwhelmed. You don't know what you're doing. And you come in this group and you ask, you're hoping is a fairly simple question. And the next thing you know, you get like 8 different opinions, half of which are conflicting with the other half. And you're going, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I try really hard to make sure that we have a pretty clear and consistent voice in what's going on in this group, and that we are supportive to one another, which is why I try to keep things down if I see a drama happen in the group, because there's so much going on that the last thing you need is to pile on top of that, right? A little bit more drama. To end your day, if you're trying to learn something, you're trying to improve yourself by learning something new, a skill that you need to know to help your child. And the last thing you need is to throw a little bit of drama and a little fire on it, when you're already tired and you're struggling to do this in the first place. So I want to keep things as easy as I can. And again, this is why I do the group. I do the group so that you don't have to struggle, hopefully, the way I struggled in trying to understand special education, medical information, medical aspects. I'm really passionate about that, and I don't like having to see people struggle, especially when you have a special needs child, because that's tough enough as it is, all by itself, without throwing on additional things that you're like, I don't, it's just all so overwhelming. Oh, I remember those days. Dude, I was teary-eyed about it. Yeah, it was so much back in the day, like, 3 kids, and I had lost a child, and, man, it was so overwhelming in the beginning. I spent 3 years, oh goodness, it took me 3 years just to cope with the loss of my daughter. As I said, I had surviving quadruplets. I lost one of my children the day after she was born. So it took me 3 years to kind of cope with that and deal with all the developmental issues that I had going on, and we were in early intervention, but I didn't understand early intervention. I didn't understand the difference between educational medical therapy. And let me tell you, it's very important to understand. And I'm a big advocate for medical therapy over educational therapy. And anytime you want to know why, you just ask me, and I'll be more than happy to explain to you why I think one is better than the other. So Catherine says, my son's school uses a match between him and other people when he has an aggressive outburst, and sometimes to move him into a different area. This technique is not listed on his IEP or behavior plan. Is this legal? She's in Connecticut. And also, is this considered a form of restraint and seclusion? Well, it wouldn't be restraint as much as seclusion. I mean, I don't see how you could argue it's not seclusion. Now, I find it interesting. It's not listed in his behavior plan. Do they have in his behavior plan, positive supports and interventions? And then the other question is, if he's had, like, how often is he having these aggressive outbursts, right? If it's fairly often, say even twice a month, to me, that's often. And I would go back to the school and say, hey, we need a new functional behavior assessment done at SBA because my child is having these outbursts in class and they're having to clear the room and they're having to pick up a mat and corner him, like a wild caged animal. This is not appropriate behavior to a child. So we need to figure out what's triggering these outbursts. I mean, they aren't coming out of nowhere, most likely, right? So what's going on? The only way you can determine that is with a functional behavior assessment. And if they completed a functional behavior assessment, Catherine, less than a year ago, what I would do then is I would ask for an IEE on the functional behavior assessment. And then you tell them why. It's because it's obviously not working, because you're having him turn all aggressive and then you're needing to use forms of seclusion in clear classrooms. And that's disruptive to everyone, being my son and all of his fellow students. So it's completely reasonable to ask for an IE for the SBA if they haven't gotten around to it. So Julie says, my son's school has no clue about his medical issues. No one ever has what he has. It is difficult for us. Well, guess what, Julie? You can completely go about educating the school. Go do it. Get together information. So Julie, you can let me know what it is that he has, or might even be able to find you some, because there may be things already done. It's not uncommon that you can put in some disability and put in after that teacher handout, like teacher information on Google, and you can find something just like that. It's quick. So there is a possibility someone's already put something together. Oh, and also go look at Teachers Pay Teachers. Teachers Pay Teachers, there's a lot of great information there, and you may not, again, need to make anything, or you can go there and just rip off ideas. Goodness knows I do that often enough. I go look at kind of what other people have done and then sort of pull and bring it and kind of turn it into my own and kind of re-visualize it, redo it. So that's completely something that's possible too. Oh, Catherine, thank you. Thank you. I do appreciate that you guys are appreciative of the work that I do put in. And I am all about teaching you stuff. So again, things you want to know, you just drop me some kind of post here in the group, or I'm going to try to do these weekly and see how they go. And we'll meet weekly on the Wednesday. And then you guys can tell me what time. Is now a better time because I have more people coming on this hour later. And I can potentially do that. But I don't want to cut off the East Coast folks. So maybe I can potentially meet on here sometime in between and say, at 7:30 my time and kind of cut the difference. So Julie was saying, used to be in my group. Parents are always asking about IEP stuff and brush up on our rights for us and our children. I can come and visit your group and potentially do that for you. That's not a problem. You're also welcome to post information in that group potentially. I guess it depends, right? If you're the owner or the admin of that group. And give them the link to my group. So either way is a possibility. You can let me know. But do keep in mind, because I do dedicate my time to my IEP group, that's where I spend the majority of my time. But I don't mind popping in and just kind of doing, a seminar or session, or y'all gather our questions and I'll come in and I'll, answer all the questions. Let's see. Catherine says he has many of these outbursts and often. So yes, if he does, and he's had many, many FBAs. So yes, ask for an IEE for the FBA. You're going to want to do that. And then you may be missing something in his IEP. Does he have an IEP? Because you don't mention. Let's see. So Catherine didn't say, yes, you do want that outside SBA. And you want it done by a backup, right? Board Certified Behavior Analyst, BCBA. They're going to be kind of your best bet to get your best SBA done. And Julie said, I tried to share this and it has something to do with rights. Agenesis is the corpus callosum. Believe it or not, I do know something about that. That's actually prone to causing behavioral issues too. So if you don't have behavioral issues, that's good. Um, so Julie says she has tried to do education packets and emails. You can also talk about coming in because your child's teachers, depending on the grade, right? Often they have their own teacher meeting once a week, a team meeting. And maybe you can ask if you can come into the team meeting and kind of talk to the teachers as a group and come in and give a presentation about agenesis of the corpus callosum and then discuss, like, oh, so when you have this condition, these are some of the typical learning disabilities that, a child can have. And, my child has whatever learning disabilities and try to help them kind of understand a little more about the struggles your child has and that when he does have issues and misbehave and probably executive functioning problems, that there's a reason for that he can't control, right? And that's the important part to point out. It's not something he's doing purposely or maliciously. It is something he literally can't control because of his brain. And so it's not fair to punish him excessively for, because you do need to do something about behavior that's socially inappropriate. You just have to. And I was having a talk with another mom who has special needs children. And she was saying, I struggle with disciplining my child because it's hard to say, and I don't want to discipline them for their disability. And I said, yes, that's true, but socially inappropriate behavior is socially inappropriate behavior. And you do need to try to stem any kind of socially inappropriate behavior because it's just going to cause more problems as the child gets larger. And I don't know. I mean, you want to put in enough rewards and incentives and put enough help, scaffolding, guides in place to help the child be successful so that you're not needing to punish them, right? Like you've given them the tools they need to be successful. And so that's what hopefully you can kind of change the teacher's mindset into being, hey, we need to brainstorm and think like, what are some tools that we can give him to help him out? A visual schedule, some graphic organizers, daily check-in sheet. There's things teachers can do if they're so inclined. I mean, that's what's the problem, right? The teacher needs to be inclined to do a lot of these. I mean, like for them to do it freely, for them to do it willingly. They need to be inclined to do these things. Well, I think they are, or they're more likely. If you explain to them kind of these issues your child is having, it's not personal, it's not against them. It's not that you're a bad parent. It's not that you didn't raise them right. They literally have problems with their brain, and this is how their brain functions. And so when we address and we give them tools, then we don't see this behavior, and life's better for everyone. And then your child's happier because they're able to learn and do the things that are expected of them, and that makes them happy, right? So let's see. So you guys, I may shift the time down then just a little bit, and that'll allow everybody, I think, hopefully, to have some time to get on and check in if they would like and to be able to have a chat with me. So Catherine says, during a psych consult, do you mean the school psychologist or do you mean a medical psychologist? It says, is it possible for a doctor to change the diagnosis based on what he sees or asks about? Absolutely, for both. So I'm just going to cover both and then say, so for a school psychologist, they're not making any medical diagnosis. And I want to make that perfectly clear because that's something that people misunderstood. That's something I misunderstood in the beginning. I didn't know that there's like this whole educational realm and then there's this whole medical realm. It's really kind of two separate realms. And the educational side, that's all the stuff that's sort of under IDEA or the Rehabilitation Act, Section 504, or something along those lines, right? And so we're looking at, especially for an IEP, say one of the 13 categories listed under IDEA. There is a kind of an educational or legal definition to autism, for instance. And often I hear people who are like, hey, I got this medical diagnosis of autism, but the school over here says, no, it's not autism, it's speech language impairment. Um, and so they're like, I don't understand because, medical says what the school says. And I said, look, here's the thing. It doesn't work quite the same. So for the medical aspect, they are going under the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, the 5th edition. And so they're looking at what does that say under the medical? What does that say? Does this child fit this definition? Does the child's behaviors or whatever fit this? If so, then this is a diagnosis to get. On the educational side, they're looking at IDEA. And they're going, so legally speaking, under the definitions of IDEA, we're going to look at this child. We're going to look at their academics. We're going to look at their developmental. We're going to look at their neuropsychological. And then, sorry, my allergies have been killing me here in Arizona. So we're going to look at all this information, and then we're going to make a decision based on all the information that we gather, based on the test scores that we see, based on the information the teacher, from the parent. They're supposed to pull all this information together and go, based on all of this information, here are the 13 categories under IDEA. Do we think the child fits in any of these 13 categories? Now, hopefully, as the parent, you know this, and you will have read, and you will have made a determination of where you think your child should go. And you kind of go in basing your argument at the IEP meeting for your child to fit into one of these certain categories. I like the parent being proactive like that, because if you just leave the school on their own, there's no telling how they'll wind up classifying the child. So I think it's good for parents to kind of go in with that in mind, right? Like, we're going in, and in my mind, I'm determined that, we're going to try to argue that my child has autism, educationally speaking, because my child medically has autism. Well, it's okay, but then you need to go in and look. What does IDEA say autism represents in the educational environment? What does your state law say that autism represents in the educational environment? And see, does your child fit that? If your child fits that, then make that argument. If your child doesn't fit that, well, okay, well, now what? What does he fit? Does he fit OHI? Does he fit SLI, speech language impairment? Where does my child fit? And then you try to figure it out. And then, like I said, you make your case for that. As the child ages, let me get back to this on changing the diagnosis. So as a child ages, for instance, a child's executive functioning improves. That's just, it's common sense, common science. It's been around for a long time that as a child ages, the brain matures, and so the level of executive functioning increases. And when the executive functioning increases, their symptoms of ADHD may just sort of fall away. They may have ADHD combo type, right? Attention and hyperactive. And then as they get older, it changes and it just becomes attentional. Things can change over time. And I've seen children who have high functioning autism, that they easily, as a small child, fully fit the medical definition of DSM-5 of autism. And then as they've gotten older, they learn, social skills because they are higher cognitively functioning and realize, like, this is what they're supposed to do. And they sort of mimic what they're seeing, these social things that they see. And so they start fitting in more with the language and with the social aspect because they're just learning it from watching their peers. Well, they can get to a point where they're like, hey, they no longer really fit the classification of autism anymore. And I will say, for medical purposes, you do want to watch that. For educational purposes, that may be just fine. It just depends on where your child is, what are their issues, and then what kind of services and things do you think they need. Does it make sense to then keep the autism eligibility versus something else? So, all that stuff is just sort of fluid and it's based on whatever the child is needing. So Steve says, thanks for the help yesterday. Thanks for awesome. Yay! By the way, I love hearing about any of the successes that you guys have because of help from the group. Seriously love hearing about it. I mean, I like knowing that the advice that you got from me or others in the group were successful and helped. But I just like hearing back from you to know that things went well. So Steve goes on to say they gave much more than we were going to ask for. We were already accepting it for disability, but still the support really helped. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. Well, thank you, Steve. And I'm really glad that, all of that was beneficial. So yay. Like I said, I love hearing when parents come back and let you know that. So team meeting, yes. All right. So Julie was saying that he has a paraprofessional. Oh, and one of the teachers used Class Dojo. I kind of dislike Class Dojo, right? Because all of that's trapped in the Class Dojo. I guess one thing you can do to kind of pull that information off so that you can have it. Because that's my thing, right? I'm all about the information. Do I have the info? I want to prove whatever it is that I'm trying to explain to you. Even the things I do for this group. I don't just sit there and spout off a bunch of stuff. Like in my blog post, I link all of my things to the resource information that I use to write it. I don't want you to believe me because you think I'm knowledgeable. I don't want you to believe me because I've been doing this for a long time. I don't want you to take my word for anything that I tell you. I want you to be skeptical, do your own research, and then hopefully take some time and look at the research that I've pulled and used in my articles. So, but the Class Dojo, the reason I have a problem with it is because you don't really have an email. You don't have any records. There's nothing for you to have. It's all trapped in this stupid app. So what you might do is do screenshots of information and then you can take it and file it away. And I probably would, especially anything that may help you prove your case later on. If you're coming back to ask for services, when we go, say you're wanting to hold an IEP meeting because you're concerned about extended school year. And you're like, hey, I want extended school year for my child. And then you can go here in Classroom Dojo, I see, my child hasn't been progressing. They have made very little progress throughout the year. This is one of the reasons, according to state law, that says, if my child isn't making enough progress, and then qualifies for extended school year, and this is what I'm asking the team for. And so you can pull that information the teacher could have sent you all along and bring that data with you. So Catherine did mention a medical psychologist. So like I said, absolutely, because as a child ages, the symptoms and stuff that they display can change. And just on a personal note, so just to explain to you about my son James. So my son James, he is autistic. He is ADHD. He is my highest cognitively functioning child of my surviving quadruplets. He is an amazing kid. He is 2E, so he is twice exceptional. He is hyperlexic. So that's the reason I've written a blog post about hyperlexia, because he is hyperlexic, and I was trying to understand, what does this mean? His ability to read stuff is amazing. I mean, he was in third grade, and he could read college-level text. It was astonishing. But it was fascinating in the fact that he didn't understand what he was reading. He could say these words. It sounded like he knew what he was talking about. And when you questioned him about the comprehension aspect, he had no idea what it was that he just read. So it was fascinating, kind of watching him and then sort of watching him and his struggles. And, when I took him when he was smaller, he displayed it, he still does this. He was doing this today at the doctor's office. He's laughing because he's excited. And it's interesting because that's kind of the very last bit of the flapping and stimming I see out of him ever. And it's not something I see often. And so unless you happen to be there and you happen to see it, you may not believe that he stims because he seems so normal. Yeah, you wouldn't think that he would be sitting like this at the doctor's office. He absolutely was today. And he also, still shows some other signs. Like he's extremely social, so so social. He would run off and leave me, like he's gone. Um, but he didn't know how to socially interact with others. He didn't know appropriate social boundaries. Um, as one of the neuropsychologists when he was young told me, it's like he has no social filter at all. He's like, it's like a stream of consciousness that comes here and it just comes right out the mouth with nothing stopping it. And I was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what's happening. Because James had put me into quite a few embarrassing situations as, he was growing up and he was really tiny. And so now, at 11, when I had taken him to get reevaluated by a neuropsychologist, right, I have to point out these things like James will, look you in the eye or have good eye contact, but only um, if you are an adult and you are far away from him. Like if you're too close, that just makes him really nervous and he won't look at you. He'll look for a moment and he does this. He'll look and he's like, and then he spends the whole rest of the time talking to you like this. Like his eyes are over here, but he's facing you, talking to you, but he won't look at you. Only if you back away. And then if you back away, he'll look at you. So if I didn't point these things out, the neuropsychologist told me, she goes, oh, I would have thought he just had ADHD and some sensory issues. And she goes, but once you pointed these things out and I can look for these more subtle signs, yes, I can still see where he's impacted by his autism. And so it was just really fascinating to see. And it's good because what she's seeing, right, is years of therapy and help and social scripting that, we have put in as a family, trying to help him, achieve the best possible life for himself. So was really encouraged with that. But, James has this risk of losing his autism, medical autism diagnosis when he's reevaluated if I don't point these things out. And it's important because these things is what allows me to get him the therapy and the services really that he's needing. So it can be difficult. And like I said, things can change over time. Um, so Jill was saying, I wish all teachers would use that app. Yeah, like I said, it can be helpful and it does keep all the information there for you. And so that's very handy. But yes, I would take the screenshot so that way you have the information. Because once the school year is over, like what happens to that information usually? What happens to all of like last year's information? Or what if your child is in fifth grade and now they're about to go to sixth? Like how long does that information stay available to you? Well, you may want to use some of that when your child goes to sixth grade and they're having their sixth grade IEP meeting. So just something to think about. And just so you guys know too, just one of my tips, please take all your stuff and you've got all this medical paperwork and stuff. Take that information, scan it, and store it in the cloud. It'll be the best thing you ever did for yourself. I finally got plunged and did all of that. And I will tell you, it's so important because it is so nice to have all this information handy. It's organized. I know where it is online. I can easily share it online. When my children need to go and get another assessment, I can literally take all of the medical or educational data because I have a folder, right? I have one medical, one educational, and in it I have more folders and everything kind of broken down and organized. And I can take those whole folders, both of them, or one, separately, depending on, am I talking to school or am I talking to, like a psychologist? And I share with them that whole folder of information. And it's just really great and handy and time saving. It really was, I think, one of the best things I ever did to try to get organized. The problem is more paper is always generated. And so you have to do the best you can to stay on top of it. All right, we're running a long time. I ran into an hour and a half. So I am going to let you guys go. Thank you. And like I said, we'll try doing this again next week. And I think this has been pretty successful for a first time out. And please let me know if you have any problems with audio or video quality. Again, sorry a little bit about this mic, but we can see what else we can do as far as mic. Um, but hopefully the audio was, overall was good and not interrupted a whole lot along with the video. But if it was, please let me know. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye.